Welcome to Message from Mom, where we are busting the myth that daughters in law don't get along with their mothers in law. And I'm joined today by my lovely co host. To the left of me is Kelly, my daughter in law.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm married to Beth's oldest son, Alex, and we've been married for going on 5 years.
And to the right of me is my daughter in law, Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I am married to Beth's middle child, Andrew, and we have been married for maybe a little over a month now. So newlyweds.
Things are going well.
Yes, they are.
Well, today we are going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is the importance of alone time in marriage. And I know you ladies have some questions for me, but before that, we're going to toast to families because you don't have to be blood relatives to love your relatives. So cheers, ladies. And thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Okay. So what do we have for the importance of time alone in marriage?
Well, do you want to
This is-
start us off, Kelly?
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite topics that we've talked about so far, actually, because I think alone time is essential in a marriage. And but before we talk about my feelings on it,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you about your time alone. I know you and Max spent a lot of time apart in your marriage, so I was hoping you might elaborate on that a little bit more for us.
We did. Well, my late husband was in the hospitality industry. And so we moved fairly frequently, even though we had stints of 5 years here and 5 years there. But as typically happens when your spouse has a job promotion, and it usually happens in the middle of a school year. So if you don't want to uproot your children, I mean, those are always topics that you have to think about and discuss and what's best for the family. But many times Mac would have a job offer like in February or March, and for sure we were not going to move the children. We would
Right.
let them finish
Year
their
for-
school.
yeah.
We would let them finish the school year out, and then also too when then they were involved in sports. So I'll never forget one of the moves, and it was probably April, March, April that Mac moved to Virginia. So we finished off the school year, and then the boys were enrolled in baseball.
Mhm.
And there was three of them in baseball,
I can't
and
imagine Andrew
one of
playing
me,
baseball.
and it was
I
pretty
think
funny.
he has a reputation for not being very good at it,
He's
actually.
not very coordinated, so
It's not very coordinated, but he was always up for it. He was very
Yeah.
social, so he was always up
yeah.
for being on the team. So I don't think it really mattered if he played well or not. But anyway, there's a funny story because juggling all three of them, and Mag's off here, and yes, and I'm by myself, not necessarily alone because I had the three boys, but juggling that was always very challenging. But I think today we really want to talk about alone time. So in those instances, it was very challenging to have that alone
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Because then I would have to for sure get a babysitter
Right.
or leave the boys on their own. Or, I mean, at that point, they were old enough where AJ could watch them be the babysitter, which is always that was always a fun. We could have
You
like
never knew what you were coming home
so
to.
many conversations about situations like that. Yes, but anyway, but alone time in a marriage is very important because I think that's when you can recharge your batteries. And so you need to be alone not only from your husband, but you need to be alone from your children as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that I think that everybody needs to be thoughtful about and carve time out of their schedules to do that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think for me, I don't know about you guys, but I consider myself to be an introvert.
Mhm.
And maybe some people that meet me would think, oh, she's definitely extroverted. And a lot of my jobs that I do and, require me to be an extrovert.
Yeah.
But I definitely recharge my batteries when I am alone. Even, we don't have kids yet. And even just with Andrew, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I'm gonna go upstairs. I always tell Andrew, I'm gonna go upstairs probably about an hour before he goes upstairs.
Mhm.
And I go, I'm gonna go upstairs and get ready for bed. And he always comes up an hour later and I'm still,
Mhm.
You're not sleeping.
no, I'm not
No.
sleeping.
You're watching Anne with an E.
I'm yeah, hand with a knee, scrolling on TikTok, whatever I'm doing. It's just not downstairs.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I think that's good because that's so I
Yeah.
think you're an introvert extrovert, and that's exactly what I am,
hmm
because I can go out and be very gregarious and very social and do all the things that we need to do with our friends and family when we're out and about. But if I don't have that time alone to recharge my batteries, it's not a pretty sight.
Yeah.
I get very cranky, I get very
hmm
irritable. So recharging my batteries is very, very important. So you already know how to do that right now in your marriage, which is good. So Kelly,
Um,
what are some of the things that you do for alone time?
yeah. So Alex and I both work from home, which is, I
Mhm.
think a lot of people experience this during COVID, especially, but that
hmm
all of a sudden you and your spouse or partner are together all the time from morning till night, and you do it all over again every single day.
Mhm.
So it's actually challenging for Alex and I to carve out time alone. But one good thing is that we do tend to travel separately for things. Like you and I have
Mhm.
gone on trips together, alone together.
Mhm.
So he gets time at home alone, and then he will travel for work sometimes.
Mhm.
So or he'll go and spend a night up with or down with you and Andrew, or he and
hmm
Andrew will do something in Atlanta or something. So
Mhm.
we do manage to carve out time apart, but it is a lot harder than it ever used to be, I think, since
Mhm.
we moved here and the pandemic happened and
Mhm.
not working
hmm
apart. It's a challenge for sure.
Mhm. And I do think you have to be purposeful of your time alone too, and especially when you do have children, because it does make it a little bit more challenging. Because one of the things that I used to do, I loved to sew when the boys were little, and I had this really kick-ass sewing room. I mean,
hmm
he was always so cute because he was always like, "You always have to have the best tools. If you're going to be doing gardening, you have to have the best gardening tools." He was just a big
Mhm.
proponent of that. So I just had the, state of the art sewing machine and a cutting table, and I mean, just all the bells and whistles. So I would just remove myself. Like, we're kind of winding down at night, and it's just about, time for the boys, to put their
hmm
PJs on, and, you take your bath, put your PJs on, read a book. So we would get them all settled, and then I would just go downstairs to my sewing room and just listen to music. So that was kind of a
hmm
built-in
Yeah.
time alone at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was also very important too when the boys were little and Mac was off at work. It was also really important for me
Hmm.
to carve out time that I was away from the boys.
Yeah.
hmm
I would imagine that would be
Hmm.
a
Yes,
priority.
it was. It
Yeah.
really, really was. So, I mean, you always have, like,
hmm
when they enroll in preschool, so you always have that. But I was always very mindful of finding babysitters, especially during the summertime
Yeah.
when we were,
Together.
24/7, we're, together all the time. So that was very important for me because there again, I just had to recharge my batteries.
Right.
Hmm.
So I feel like when I was a kid, I always knew when my mom was having her alone time and I just knew not to bother her.
Hmm.
Did you ever make that very clear
Oh,
to the boys? Like, mom is going to her sewing room. Don't come in here. Or
well,
would they come in and bother you
they
while you
would,
were?
they would come in and bother me. They would just come in and bother me. I mean, my mom always used to get the biggest kick out of the boys, but she was always, I think I've shared this before too. She was always like, I don't know. I don't understand how you do this. But that was one of the things that she really noticed, is like when I really did extricate myself from the
Mhm.
boys, they would, one by one, they would be coming and following me. And she's like, they can't be, your door is closed. They shouldn't be opening that door. And I'm like, well, mom, we're working on this. This is a
Yeah.
work in progress. And I don't think we ever really got there,
Yeah.
because she also didn't understand the dynamics of three boys, because
Yeah.
there's just so much energy with them. And
That's a lot.
there's just a lot of
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
Yes. Whereas girls, we're much more willing to understand or be sensitive to our moms or to the
Mhm.
needs of others,
Yeah.
and or we actually like to have our alone time as young girls. I
Mhm.
mean, I can
Yeah.
remember just going in my room and reading, or listen to music. Those are the days where we had the 78s, and I had a little 78
Mhm.
player. I would go back and do that. And I just never really noticed the boys
Yeah.
ever doing that. It was just always constant motion, and they were out, playing or engaged in something. So there wasn't their alone time like that. So maybe they have that now, which is good
Yeah. Yeah.
because as adults you have to learn
Yeah.
how to incorporate that into your life. But
Yeah.
yes, but as young boys, no.
No.
No
They're always
boundaries.
following me. Yes, even I mean
No
in the
boundaries.
bathroom and the.
I always think even now, I definitely enjoy my alone time more than Andrew enjoys his alone time. And he would say otherwise. He
Mhm.
would be like,
That's
oh,
interesting.
That is.
I enjoy my alone time. But there are times where I'll go upstairs or I'll go and he's like, where are you going? Or he'll come and follow me upstairs 5 seconds later. And I'm like,
What are you
what are you
doing?
doing here? He would not admit to that, but if someone were to videotape our lives,
Yeah.
I would be correct on this.
I think I'm Alex is really good at spending time on his own. Like he plays guitar. And so,
Mhm.
you know, he does that on his own and
Mhm.
that's not a couple's activity.
Right.
So,
That's, that's an individual.
True.
yeah, and I actually in the spring and summer and fall being outside in the yard is how I manage to
Mhm.
get alone time
Gardening.
at home when we're both there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I really enjoy that, but also cleaning
Mhm.
is the other thing that I
Yeah.
do that actually is my alone time. It sounds so dumb, I know, but you know, I just go and close the bathroom door and
Uh-huh.
clean the bathroom, and you know, you get a little time alone then too.
Right.
And,
It's very therapeutic.
it is for me, yeah. Like
Mhm.
cleaning for me is it
Mhm.
clears my head, and I can
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
kind of focus on something and not get caught up in things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really do. I really
Like a
do
mindless
like it.
Mhm.
task that
Yeah.
you can do, which
Mhm.
is nice. I
Mhm.
feel like it's always good to have
Mhm.
those.
Yeah.
I enjoy going, like I'll go and take a Pure Bar class
Mm-hmm.
and I'll take Asher, our English bulldog, on a walk
Mhm.
around our neighborhood. I
Yeah.
feel like I kind of do things like
Mhm.
that, or I'll go and
Mhm.
get my nails done.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's an excellent one. And
Mm-hmm.
one that at I mean, as a young mom, I didn't incorporate that regularly. It would be like once a month, but then as the boys got older and Mac climbed the corporate ladder, we had a little bit extra money, then that really became
Mm-hmm.
me time. And it still is to this day. I really enjoy going off to a mani-pedi because it really is. It's just downtime.
Yeah.
And I am not connected to anything or anyone. I'm just really enjoying just that time. So yes, so it's good to have those built-in ones. And walking the dog. I mean,
That is another good one too.
so, that's a great one. I mean, I have been walking. I mean, I've had a dog in my life, my entire life, and I can just remember as a teen walking our Irish setter at night and just and really understanding at that point how
Mm-hmm.
calming and how relaxing that was. And so
Oh, it's so
it
calming.
really,
I feel
really
like if
is.
I'm having a bad day,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, obviously, if it's a nice day outside, going to take Asher for a walk
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm. is very calming because,
Mhm.
I mean,
Getting some exercise,
Yes.
fresh
fresh
air.
air, exercise, and, I love animals and dogs, but the great thing is that they don't talk. So it's a silent walk.
Yeah, and even though, you know, Alex and I don't have kids, but I will say that our three dogs are pretty glued to my hip. Like
Mhm.
I actually need time alone from them, to be
Mhm.
honest, because they just never leave me alone. Like I sit on the couch, they're on my lap, you know, they're right
Mhm.
next to me, and I'm in my office working, and they're, you know, one of them is always trying to sit on my lap while I'm working, but the other two are, you know, but they're always there. And I do find though that spending time in the yard is nice because I can be outside with them, but they're off doing their sniffing and
Mhm.
whatever, and I'm
Mhm.
doing my thing. And so it is true alone time
Mhm.
that I get to
Yes.
have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. Do you think that it is important for you and your significant other to have the same friend group, to have different friend groups, to have both? How did you
Mhm.
deal with that with Mac? Did you find that you had similar friend groups or?
You need to have both because you really do need couple friends, although I think the couple friends are the most challenging to find
Yeah.
because
It's so
it
hard to find
it really can be
where it's
very,
like
very
you both get
challenging.
along and
Exactly. And that's where I think sports like golf come into play because you can just be on a scramble. And so you get paired, so you're out socially with other couples, but you're not necessarily out to dinner with that couple. So I
Mhm.
think in environments like that make it a little bit easier
Yeah.
to start developing couple friends. So that's one thing. And my mom was always really big on that. She was not a very good golfer, but she was good enough so she could do
Mhm.
that because my dad was a big golfer
Yeah.
and that was very important to her. So I do see where that something like that really comes into play. But couple friends are
Couple
important
friends, yeah.
because you really do. You need to go out and enjoy.
Well, and I consider like I don't know about you guys, but I consider like going out with my friends like to be a form of alone time, even though I'm
Yes.
not necessarily by myself.
Right.
Yes.
But I consider that to be, I'm gonna go hang out with my group of girlfriends.
Mhm.
You go hang out with your guy friends.
Mhm.
Um,
And that's important too.
yeah.
So that, going back to friends. So I think you need couple friends, but you also need your individual friends too,
Mhm.
Mhm.
because you need to have that very special person or several people in your life that you can go off and do things with.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very important. And so they will like I'm just looking back at my life as a married person. And so those women always knew Mac and always appreciated him, but
Mhm.
they weren't necessarily in his life other than he knew that they
For
were my
for you,
friends.
yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, but you really do need both. And church is always that was also another place to find couple friends too,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because when you're in church and you're like at their oh gosh, Bible study before. I mean, they would always have
Mhm.
like the sermon or the why am I'm becoming such a dweeb here? Why am I help me out, ladies? What am I talking about?
Just
Going to
like a
church
small group or
small yes,
yeah.
so you have the small group time before before you
Yeah.
you go off to the sermon. Because all I could well, I grew up Catholic,
I
so
was
all
gonna
I could
say
I know, so that's why it was
I did not grow
so
up
that was
Catholic.
Yeah.
mass. So that was but then we became Protestants, so then we were in a Protestant church. So
Mhm.
it's called something else. So everybody can leave it in the comments of
What it's called?
yes, what
What
it's
it's
called.
called.
But yeah, my Catholicism is really kicking in because it's like mass. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, Bible study time. But anyway, that's also
Yeah.
another great opportunity to meet people
Yeah.
is through that. And then people your own age.
Mhm.
It may have changed because I mean, I do know church attendance is way down
Yeah.
from when I was married and actually from when I was growing up. So those dynamics perhaps have changed,
Yeah.
but it is. That's probably the most
Mhm.
challenging thing. And I do know too, because we did move a lot. And so we've lived in new subdevelopments and older ones. So a newer one, a newer suburb is always a great place to meet people your age, young
Mhm.
families, and all of that. So
Mhm.
that was, and I just remember when we moved to Texas and we lived in Green Trails, and so there were just so many people
Mhm.
our age. So
Yeah.
that was an easy way
Yeah.
to meet people.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We actually I Alex and I did a bowling league when we lived in
Fun.
California, and that was like the golf thing because you're
Mhm.
spending time being social with people and you already have something in common,
Yeah.
a game,
Mhm.
so whether it's golf or bowling or pickleball
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So I actually really like that. I think that's a smart way, especially like I said, we both work from home, so it's really challenging to meet new
Mhm.
people when you move to a place and you don't have a job
Mhm.
outside of your house.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
really
Oh,
tough.
I
So,
know.
Well,
um,
it's challenging to meet people as you get older because I feel
yeah, in
like
general.
people
Mhm.
have their friend groups and especially, you guys coming here from completely different states and,
Mhm.
you know, it
Yeah,
Mhm.
makes it definitely harder to meet people.
yeah,
Mhm.
it
It
is.
does.
So that also does, I mean, for us anyway, that does put a bit of a damper on carving out alone time. Like you said, you go out with your girlfriends and
Yeah.
things like that. All of my very good friends live in other places, so we have phone dates and things like that, which is great. But as far as like just stopping by someone's house, and hanging
Yeah.
out or whatever,
Mhm.
that doesn't really happen all that much.
Well, I find even, I mean, I grew up here in Georgia, and even some of my friends that I have that I'm good friends with, we live in different parts of town.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
And if, you're not familiar with Atlanta, I mean, it can take you between 30 to 45 minutes to get from
Right?
your part of town to theirs.
Mhm.
And even though 30 or 45 minutes isn't, it's not a big drive, but if you're trying to plan up to meet, if any sort of drinks are involved, and then you're like, okay, well,
Right.
do I Uber? Or am I,
Mhm.
how am I going to get there? I got to get home.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a huge process to
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
And then inevitably, the day comes and everyone's tired. You've worked all day
I
and
know, right?
then you're like,
Sometimes
did we
I
even
know.
do this?
I know.
The
It,
effort.
it won't get any better because I can remember many times it can be a big effort to go to your bunco group or your book club
Mhm.
those are some of the things that I did as a young mom to get out of the house
Mhm.
and to have
Mhm.
my time. But yes, sometimes you're just like, oh, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
But you really do have
I
to
do
make that
think,
effort.
yeah, it's
You
important
do.
to make the
You
effort.
have to.
And I also
You really,
think,
really do.
like, you know, like we were talking about, drawing this back to having your own group of girlfriends,
Hmm.
I find that I don't like to be the person that cancels all the time,
Right.
because I have friends that have done that where it's like they'll
Hmm.
cancel very last minute and they do it all the time. And then I feel like then you just stop inviting them
Right.
Right.
because you're like, okay,
You
well,
do.
they're flaky and I don't want to be that flaky person. I'm not trying to be.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Well, I don't know. Do you guys have any other thoughts on the importance of alone time in a marriage?
Any other I mean, I think one of the things that is important especially for young mothers, is that time away from their children.
Yeah.
Mm.
I do think that that was one of the things, and I
A
had some
challenge.
very sage advice. My Nana was a nurse at a pediatrician's office, so she gave me very, very sage and sound advice from the get go. And one of them was, Beth, you have to understand that your children actually have to learn to separate from you.
Mhm.
So otherwise, you're going to be setting them up for separation anxiety their
Yeah.
whole life. And I'm not even sure if she even understood all of the ramifications way back then
Right.
I mean, because we've really come a long way with our biology and how how our brains are wired and things like
Yeah.
that. But she was very adamant. She's like, and I had a really great OBGYN, my very first one, that also impressed that on me. So that was really in my mindset, was that, okay, I have got to train my children and and
Mhm.
train myself that
Mm-hmm.
we have to have s- different outings. So whether it's going to preschool or getting the babysitter, but you have to be able to help them say goodbye
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and that you will be back
Yeah.
and that
That's
life
the challenge.
life will be okay
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I don't I vaguely remember this, but I remember my mom telling stories. I was at this preschool that I think I was maybe like 3 or 4, and every time we'd go to this preschool, I would just cry. Like,
Hmm.
I would scream, I did not wanna go, and
Yeah.
and I think eventually my mom just ended up switching me to a new preschool, so maybe it was on the preschool rather than me having separation from her,
Right.
Hmm.
but,
Hmm.
and my mom would feel so bad,
Hmm.
but she was like, "I have to go to work,"
Yeah.
because she worked and she was
That's right.
a single mom at the time. She's like, "I feel bad leaving you here." And
That's
she
right.
said that she would literally get in her car and she would cry all the way to work because she felt so bad.
I know,
Oh.
because you
But
hate
I do think that's a big thing. And,
Yeah.
it is.
but she kept doing it and she kept it going and she still made me go to preschool. And I do think now it's very common for moms to be like, nope, we're going to go home.
They
Yeah.
are, which is it's very, very interesting. And I have a friend that is in education in Texas, and she actually she's the person that children, if there's like a learning disability or autism, or they come to
Mhm.
her and she does evaluations. But my generation was called the helicopter parent
Mm.
because we were always so involved in our children's lives and
Mhm.
making the play dates and making sure that they went to this camp or we were doing this activity, or and we were very, very involved. But my friend Lori has said that they're now called lawnmower parents because they're that much closer to their child's life. And I
Yeah.
do see this like on if I'm over on TikTok or Instagram and I'll see these young moms, it's just like, no, I can't trust the educators there. I can't trust the school. I can't.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole nother
Yeah.
mindset out there that's much different than mine. And I'm actually very glad that I had that advice years ago from my
Yeah.
Nana and my OBGYN. And also too, and I do remember with the boys. I mean, as I said, they're boys and they're always like, oh, and and like, where's mama? Oh, but I was very mindful. I didn't want to be that helicopter parent. I really wanted them to be bored.
Yeah. Figure out how to entertain yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it wasn't always me. It's like, well, we're bored. We need something to do. Well, guess what?
Go figure it out.
You get to go figure that out because I'm going to go to my sewing room or,
know.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
and
It's so
I would-
funny. When
Mhm.
we're young, we're like, we're bored, we're bored.
Uh-huh.
I would love to be bored right
Right?
now.
I know.
I know, right?
I would literally welcome boredom in my life.
Yeah.
I know. I'm with you
Oh,
too. And I can remember too, the boys always fighting about going to bed. And I used to look at them. I mean, I'll still say this to this day. It's like, I would love for somebody to give me a bath and put my PJs on and read a book to me and kiss me goodnight. I would love that.
yeah.
Why are you fighting?
Yeah.
Like it's a very, very, beautiful little ritual that we do every night, but every night it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're not, oh.
FOMO as a kid.
Right. Yeah.
You're missing out on something that's not happening.
It's totally true. Yeah.
It's pretty funny. So,
Oh.
but yes, so I do think the alone time from your spouse is very, very important.
Mhm.
And I do, because I think you're much better people when you're off doing different things and then you come back and then you
Mhm.
you take those experiences and then bring that back into your
100%.
marriage.
Yeah.
But you also need that alone time from your children as well. It's very, very important. And yes, and as I said, they have to learn that you're saying goodbye. And I don't know, I was always, I mean, I look at some of these young moms and I'm like, what is wrong with you? I was always like, bye.
See you later.
I have 2 hours. What can I do in 2 hours? Not a whole lot, but I mean, at least
Yeah.
It was
yes.
something.
It was really, really fun. So, and I always also loved it when Mac would take trips
Mm-hmm.
because that was a time where not necessarily alone time, but for the boys and I mean, I would like
Yeah.
macaroni and cheese. I mean, we would eat
Oh, I love
all
when
that
Andrew
thing.
golfs.
Yeah, because it was just like, and I loved to wave goodbye to Mac. I'll see you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
on Friday. And yes, so I would have all the easy meals and
Yeah.
all the favorites for the boys that weren't necessarily nutritious or whatever, but a lot of fun
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
eat. So
A fun time
Mhm.
with your, yeah.
yeah,
I really like to, when Alex goes out of town, I really like to really clean the house
Mhm.
and then just enjoy everything in its place for the
Uh-huh.
whole time that he's
That
gone.
cracks me up because I can totally see you doing that.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I feel like I'm the opposite. The house becomes a disaster,
Mhm.
and then like the day before Andrew gets home, I'm like, oh crap! I'm like, all right, let me clean it up. I'm like I'm like, let me binge Netflix. What show can I watch that he
Right?
doesn't like?
Yeah.
I know.
I
know.
definitely do that, but I
Yes.
I kick my feet up on the couch or on the coffee table and
Yes.
look around and I think, oh, the house looks really good, and it's gonna be good for another week or 3 days or whatever.
That's right. Yes,
Oh,
binge watching TV, and because that became a big deal when we lived in Vietnam.
Mm.
And we had access to all of those DVDs that perhaps weren't the authentic
They
ones,
were
but
like,
we had
oh, the
we had access
yeah.
to them. But that was great because we didn't have access to TV
Mhm.
Yeah.
or to the TV shows. So these DVDs, that was my first introduction of binge watching. It was because it was like
Yeah.
I could have 6 seasons of The Sopranos
Right.
or whatever it was,
Oh yeah.
and then
You don't have to wait until the next week for it to come out.
it was like
Yeah.
this was
Like
like
Desperate Housewives. I remember when that show came out, and it
Genius.
was like you had to watch.
I
It's like
know.
you'd watch one episode.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right, well, next
I know.
Sunday when it comes out.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
So,
Well, anything
anyway.
else, ladies? Have we covered alone time in a marriage
I
and
think we have
Yeah, I
made our
think we
points
covered
that
it.
that it is very important.
alone time and with your family and things like that? And so I think we have definitely come to the conclusion that alone time makes a better person.
100%.
For sure.
Okay. All right, ladies.
Absolutely.
Well, there we go. This concludes the episode of The Importance of Alone Time in Marriage. And I think we are, again, busting the myth that mothers in law are not necessarily monsters in law. So thanks, ladies.